The observation deck hummed with the sterile efficiency of the Galactic Conservation Institute's flagship facility. Dr. Alara Quinn stood before the reinforced transperisteel barrier, her breath fogging slightly against the cold surface as she watched the predator cubs below. Behind her, the facility's automated systems chirped and beeped in their endless mechanical conversation, but her focus remained absolute. She had been assigned to this station 3 months ago, the only human in a crew of 73 xenobiologists from across the Federation. Her credentials were impeccable: a decade studying apex predators on Earth, groundbreaking work on pack behavior, and a reputation for understanding what others called the language of hunters. But credentials meant little here, where species, far older than humanity, had established protocols that predated human spaceflight by millennia. The cubs in the containment arena were Vraken, 6-limbed predators from a death world in the Outer Rim. Their homeworld had been ravaged by strip mining corporations, and these cubs represented the last genetic diversity of their kind. The Institute's mission was clear: train them to survive in a protected reserve, teach them to hunt, to hide, to live as their ancestors had before the corporations came. But the training wasn't going well. Dr. Alara watched as the Cathari handlers, insectoid beings with compound eyes and chitinous patience, attempted another hunting drill. The cubs, each roughly the size of earth tigers, moved through the motions with mechanical precision. Too mechanical, too lifeless. They weren't learning to hunt, they were learning to perform. "They're failing," came a voice behind her. Senior researcher Tholvan, a towering Etherian with crystalline skin that refracted light into rainbow patterns, stood with his multiple arms crossed. "At this rate, we'll need to re-evaluate the entire program." Ilara turned from the glass. "They're not failing. They're bored." "Bored?" Tholvan's voice carried the harmonics of disbelief. "We've followed every protocol, every tested methodology." "That's the problem," Ilara interrupted, her voice soft but firm. "You're teaching them like students in a classroom. But they're not students, they're predators. They need to feel it, not just learn it." Tholvan's crystalline face remained impassive, but his posture shifted, a subtle indication of interest in Etherian body language. "And you propose what, exactly?" "Let me go in." The request hung in the air like a physical thing. Around the observation deck, other researchers stopped their work, sensors forgotten, data pads lowered. A human wanted to enter the arena, with predator cubs, without protective barriers or neural dampeners or any of the 17 safety protocols mandated by Institute regulation. "Absolutely not," Tholvan said. "The liability alone." "I've worked with apex predators my entire career," Alara said. "Wolves, bears, big cats. I know how they think, how they communicate. These cubs aren't dangerous, they're confused. They need something real." The debate lasted 17 minutes. In the end, Ilara's reputation and sheer stubbornness won out. Though Tholvan insisted on a medical team standing by and override protocols ready to flood the arena with sedative gas at the first sign of aggression, Ilara stepped into the decontamination chamber, stripped of anything that might carry foreign scents, and emerged into the arena's artificial wilderness. The environment was impressive. Genuine soil imported from the Vraken homeworld, vegetation cloned from genetic archives, even the light spectrum calibrated to match their native sun. The cubs noticed her immediately. 6 sets of eyes, each pair glowing with that distinctive Vraken amber, locked onto her position. The Cathari handlers froze, their antennae quivering with alarm. The cubs had abandoned their drill formation entirely, their attention now solely focused on this new element in their carefully controlled world. Alara didn't run. She didn't freeze. She sat down. It was the most human thing she could have done, and the most effective. On Earth, sitting reduced your threat profile, showed submission without fear, invited investigation rather than confrontation. She didn't know if it would work with alien predators, but her instincts, honed through years of studying Earth's hunters, told her it was right. The largest cub moved first. Turn, according to the designation in her briefing files, though she thought of him more personally now. He was the leader of this small pack, the one who had shown the most promise and the most frustration with the rigid training protocols. Tern approached slowly, his 6 legs moving in that distinctive rockin' gait. Graceful, deliberate, utterly silent, despite his size. His nostrils flared, taking in her scent, and then something remarkable happened. He sat. Not in the way the handlers had trained them to sit, haunches down, tail wrapped, posture perfect. He sat the way a predator sits when it's curious, when it's found something interesting, when it's trying to understand. His amber eyes studied her face, and Alara could have sworn she saw recognition there, not of her specifically, but of something deeper, something familiar. The other cubs followed. One by one, they abandoned their positions and padded toward her, forming a ring around where she sat. Their movements weren't aggressive or fearful. They were comfortable, natural. For the first time since arriving at the facility, they looked like what they were supposed to be, living creatures, not training subjects. Alara remained still, her heart hammering, but her breathing controlled. In the observation deck above, she knew alarms were probably screaming, handlers reaching for override controls. But she also knew, with the certainty that comes from years of experience, that this moment was crucial. Tern leaned forward, his broad head tilting. His breath was warm against her face, not unpleasant, carrying the scent of the raw meat the facility provided. And then slowly, deliberately, he pressed his forehead against hers. The gesture was so startlingly familiar that Alara almost gasped. Wolves did this. Big cats did this. It was a gesture of trust, of acceptance, of recognizing another hunter. The fact that an alien predator from a world dozens of light years away would share this same instinctive communication spoke to something deeper than training, deeper than species. It spoke to the universal language of apex predators. The other cubs pressed closer, not threatening but curious. One nuzzled her shoulder, another placed a massive paw, gently, so gently, on her knee. They were treating her like pack, like family, like one of their own. And perhaps in the way that mattered most, she was. Humans had been apex predators long before they built starships. They had hunted across savannas and forests, had learned to read the subtle signs of other predators, had developed the social bonds that made them successful hunters. That ancient heritage lived in Alara still, coded into her instincts and posture and the way she met the cubs' gazes without fear or dominance. Just honest recognition. The cubs stayed with her for 2 hours. They didn't continue their drills. They didn't follow protocols. Instead, they played, actual play, the kind that taught real hunting skills. They stalked each other and pounced. They tested their strength and speed. They learned cooperation and competition. And through it all, they kept checking back with Alara, seeking her approval, her participation, her presence as an anchor point for their natural behaviors. When she finally stood to leave, Tern followed her to the arena exit. His amber eyes held hers for a long moment, and she reached out, running her hand along his powerful neck. "You're going to be fine," she whispered. "You just needed to remember what you are." Above in the observation deck, the research team stood in stunned silence. The data streaming across their displays showed things they'd never recorded before: genuine pack bonding, natural predator behaviors, the kind of social cohesion that couldn't be trained or programmed. Thalvan approached as Alara emerged from decontamination. His crystalline face was unreadable, but his voice carried harmonics of respect. "That was unprecedented. How did you know?" Alara smiled, still feeling the warmth of Tern's presence, the weight of trust from 6 young predators who had found something in her they desperately needed. "Because we're not that different," she said. "Humans might build starships and write poetry, but we're still predators. We still remember what it means to hunt, to protect our pack, to recognize our own kind. Those cubs didn't need better training. They needed someone who understood that being a predator isn't about following drills. It's about being alive." The Vraken cub training program was revolutionized that day. The protocols were rewritten, and at the center of it all was a human who had walked into an arena and reminded everyone of a simple truth. Sometimes the most advanced technology in the galaxy can't compete with the ancient wisdom coded into a predator's heart.